I see a lot of familiar faces, but there's a lot of brand new faces too. It's been a year since I've actually spoke, not quite a year, with the Rogers County GOP. We've held quite a number of events in Claremore and Rogers County, but this is just my second time to actually speak with the group here. And I'm going to walk around a little bit because of this post right here. And believe me, I know I'm not a lot to look at, but I like to see faces. Sherry, thanks for having me back. I guess I didn't do too bad of a job that first time, so I appreciate that. And I appreciate every one of you coming here and taking part in this and being involved in the political process, even though it's not a pretty process, just to be frank. I think we're all aware of that. I am a fourth generation Southeast Oklahoma citizen, very proud of it. I come from Hugo, Choctaw County, Oklahoma, America. It's my little piece of what I call it, the finest piece of terra firma God ever created over here in eastern Oklahoma. I'm a product of multiple education systems. The public school system of Hugo, Oklahoma. And as I go along, I'm going to touch on a lot of the same topics that Marty touched on. Now, I'm not going to point them out because we're going to have to. I want you to think and pay attention and say, "Hey, that's what Marty said." Howard's talking about it as well. So, public school system of Hugo, Oklahoma was. I'm almost 44 years old. That was before the United States Department of Education was put in place. Actually, it was the last part of my elementary years. I was very fortunate, and my family moved to Medan, Indonesia, on the island of Sumatra. It was just a little bit north, and a few years later, then where the guy that now sits in the White House, he went to school in that same country. Just a little different island, a little different time period. We came away from that experience about the same age with a totally different perspective and worldview somehow. And we'll get into that before it ends. I attended junior high there. I went to high school at the Republic of Singapore. I came back to Hugo, graduated Hugo High School, went to the University of Oklahoma. I actually worked my way through college. You could do that then. It wasn't so expensive that you couldn't afford it. I worked several jobs, generally as a mechanic and a salesperson. In my senior year, I was actually a division manager for Sears Automotive in Oklahoma City. And that kind of began my I guess, experience in the business world at that time in managing, understanding how business ran. During my college years, I also understood or gained the knowledge of what the true definition of politics is. And that it's a derivative of two Latin terms, poly meaning many and ticks meaning blood-sucking creatures. And I've been doing this for a little over a year now, and that is the best definition of politics that I've ever heard. Right out of college, I went back to work overseas. I forgot to mention, my wife's not here tonight. She works at Choctaw Memorial Hospital. I still work full-time as well. And we have logged, her and I, about 1,300 miles in the past 60 hours. And the trip up here and back is going to add another 450 to it. If I were a commercial driver's license holder, I'd probably be due a fine right now. My oldest son is here. Colin, stand up, sir. 16, just turned 16. And he was wearing a brace because he got a helmet on the arm the other night in football practice. My wife and I will be married 24 years on the day before the primary. We married my sophomore year of college. She helped put me through college and I worked. Like I said, from there I went back to work overseas. Eventually, I was working 30 days on, 30 days off. We had an opportunity to move to South Africa. My wife and I, we moved to South Africa. I continued to work throughout Africa and Southeast Asia until about '94. We were married 8 years and we decided we're going to get too old or something, we better start having a family. Where are we going to have our family at? And I told my wife, I said, you know, Hugo's kind of neat. I spent 10 years trying to figure out how to get out of that little podunk town, and I spent the next 10 years trying to figure out how to get back. The point of this, real simple, is that I actually had a choice, my wife and I, not just me, but we had a choice. We could literally live anywhere in the world. And I chose, and she chose with me. My mother's right here, who kind of helped make that choice as well. She's from southeast Oklahoma, Hugo. We chose to live in southeast Oklahoma. I like the small town atmosphere. I like the character. I like the values. I like the Christian down-home beliefs that was instilled in me and my family. And everybody that I knew, we chose to live there. I eventually got my master's in national security studies. I used to write a little bit for papers here and there, and it was just kind of something that I had a lot of, when I had some spare time that I would do. I've been a contributing author to, does anyone read Canada Free Press or WorldNet Daily, American Daily Review? I've written several articles for those. They get carried around. I'm kind of known as, one of the first description of me was he's a conservative activist. And it kind of went downhill from there to extremist, to I want to steal food out of babies' mouths and kill old people, the typical, I guess, accusations that have been going towards Republicans for many, many decades. Like many of you, I'm probably not your typical Republican. The typical Republican is the old, rich white guy. I'm getting older. I'm definitely not rich, but I'm conservative. And I chose to be a Republican. That's what I registered as. And the reason for that is, as I was gaining these experiences, not only overseas and at home, something happened to the United States of America, and I know everybody in here remembers that. In '78, it was about 3 years after the fall of Vietnam. I was living in Southeast Asia at the age of 11 and 12 years old. Jimmy Carter was president. It was the doldrums for America. It was bad. It was pretty bad. Americans really didn't feel good about themselves. The rest of the world really didn't like us too much. And there I was running around being called, Anjing American, which is American dog, at 11 and 12 years old. It really honestly didn't bother me. I just stood up for America, even being the stupid kid that I was, because this is my home. This is what I knew it to be. It wasn't just Oklahoma. I was more well-rounded than that. This is my country. And then came Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan had a profound impact on my political philosophy. And it was something that had stuck with me since that first day that I was cognizant of what he meant by American exceptionalism. And of course you grow older and you start learning a few things. And yes, American exceptionalism, that goodness and that greatness of American ingenuity and American character. I started learning. This is years ago. Well, what is the American character? I believe it was defined, and I think every one of you will as well. It was defined, birthed, and molded by our founding principles. That Declaration of Independence that said, the Constitution that started as we the people. It wasn't somebody else that started this government, it was the people. In the Declaration of Independence, we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. American exceptionalism does not mean that we are better than anyone else. It means that we're different. And that line is what makes us different. We are endowed by our Creator with those unalienable rights of life, liberty, and property. And I'm going to fast forward real quick because we do have... My philosophy is based on that American exceptionalism and the fact of what Reagan said was government is not the solution, it is the problem. And I think every one of us have this arbitrary line in the sand that says we are only going to accept so much from government. That line for me was crossed many, many years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not a politician. Believe me. Marty said he forgot to introduce his family the other day. I was in McAllister, and I've done 75, 80 of these things, and I didn't say my name. Try that one, Marty. Back to what we will accept from government. Again, I'm not a politician. I do not want to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going to ask for your support tonight. I believe in term limits. I think that there will be unintended consequences to that, and sometime down the road, and